how you can use the desmos calculator for these. Okay, the first is sort of the main central tendency statistical concepts that you need to be able to work with. Okay, mean, median, and mode. Okay, so to find the mean, really what you're doing is you're adding all the values and you're dividing by the number of values there were. But the nice thing is the Desmos has built-in statistical measurements. So if you click this keyboard icon and go to functions, okay, and if you scroll down, there's a whole section on statistics. You'll see mean and median in here. So if you just type in mean, and then you just list the numbers. So 66, 5, 32. So notice I'm just typing in this entire list of numbers. I'll move over to the next column. And then notice as I'm going through, it's calculating it for me, and I see that my average is 45.27 approximately. Okay, and so that's all you would have to do, again, if you were being asked a question of this nature. Okay, you can use Excel spreadsheets for this. You can use your T99 for this. I believe in the embedded videos, there's options for both of those to see, and I'll add this option in as well. But this is what you have access to now, and so I would encourage you to use it. All right, so the same exact process can be used for finding the median. So I want you, or just really quickly, let me define it real quick, and then I want you to try on your own. But the median is the middle term when values are ranked from least to greatest. If there's an even number of terms, then what happens is the two middle ones have to be averaged out. Okay, and so when you're working with medians, sometimes, especially with certain things where you just get sort of a range of answers, you could still use median to kind of work your way in. If you kind of rank what you have, and then you just work from the two outermost ones cancel each other, then the next one's in, then the next one's in, and just kind of keep working your way in if everything is already sorted in that order. If it's not sorted in an order, then you need to calculate it by either rewriting them in the order, or again, you can use Desmos and the median command. So see if you can answer these two here really quickly. While you're calculating them, I'm just going to show you visually. If you're solving this by hand, if you rank them from least to greatest, and then just start working your way from the outside in. So cancel the two outermost, then the remaining outermost, then the remaining outermost, and you get your answer. Same here. Cancel the outermost as this set of outermost, then this. Now notice you have two, and this is an even number of terms, so it's just going to be halfway between these. So 15.5 is halfway between 15 and 16. For the first one, it would just be the 15. But once again, if you're calculating this, go into your the keyboard, choose function, scroll down, and select median, or type the word median. And then if you just type your list of terms, so for the first one, 18, 19, 12, again, just typing them in the order that they appear. And you get your median, shows up as 15. Do the same thing with the next question. And as you list them, notice you get your confirmation. Okay? So median is just the middle terms when you rank them from least to greatest. Okay? And then the final of these sort of basic central tendency questions is mode. Mode just means the number that's repeated the most frequently. So when you're working with this, they must repeat. If there is no number that repeats, then there's no mode. Okay, and so for this one, you're really, you tend to just count it. You don't need to use a calculator for it. Just look in and see, are there any numbers that are repeated multiple times? So here, 31 is, there's no other number in that set that's repeated. So that's your mode. Okay, and sometimes they give you a frequency distribution. Okay, and if that's the case, it's just a matter of interpreting what you see. So I want you to just really quickly answer this last question here. And can you find what the mode is of that table to the right? Here's the most frequent one, right? It's of repeating 7 times, and so you just identify that's the number that gets repeated 7 times, and so that would be your mode. Okay, so mean, median, and mode, that's what those are representing. All right, so what I want you to do is see if you can apply those 2 questions, or those 2 concepts to these questions here, okay, and find all that are asked, the mean, median, and the mode for each of those. So you have some options here. So because of this frequency distribution, you're going to have, if you count these up, there's a total of 17 different values or scores that you're going to combine. So you can either list them all out in Desmos and perform the commands to them, or you could just find what the total sum of the scores would be with their frequency, then divide by n, the number, 17 different scores, to find what the total average would be. So either of those is fine. I mean, if you're going to do this by hand, a score of 0 happening twice is a total of 0. A score of 3, or a score of 1 happening 3 times is 3. A score of 2 happening twice is 4. 3 happening twice is 6. 4 happening 5 times is 20. 5 happening 3 times is 15. And so if you combine all of these, here you have 35 plus another 10 is 45 plus 3 is 48. And so here you get 48 over 17 as your average. So if I took 48 over 17, I get my average to be 2.82 approximately. And so if you're doing it by hand, which you can do, and it depends how easy that is for you, if you're going to let the calculator do it, we can, and because we're doing the mean, median of these both, you can create your list and then just change the word in front. So if we find the mean here and just type 0 twice, then type 1 3 times, then type 2 twice, type 3 twice, and type 4 5 times, 1 2 3 4 5, and then type 5 3 times, 1 2 3, you get the same thing. So you can let the calculator do this for you, or you can physically do it yourself. Now, when you find the median, if you're going to do this by hand, the median can be found just by, again, counting from the outside in. Okay, so you have this score here. If you get rid of 2 of these, here you have 3 of these, so we have to get rid of 1 of these as well. Keep moving in. If we go 2 times, 4 times, 5 times, it goes into this. 5 times cancels here. And so what we see is this score of 3 is what's left in the middle. Now, if we're working on Desmos here, you can just type the word median in there, and in that same list, I just added the D and the I to the word mean. Makes it nice and easy, and it confirms that 3 is, in fact, your median. And then finally, the mode, the one that appears the most often, just look at the one that shows up the most frequently, which is a score of 4. And that one you'd have to do by hand either way. All right. The next one, because the list is relatively small, I wouldn't even bother trying to add them up. In this one, I'm just going straight to the calculation of mean, median, and mode. So if I just start typing my scores or the data, as we're working through it, it gives you the running total. So you see that your overall mean is 69.1. To find the median, you could either copy this whole thing and paste it into a new cell, right? So I can hit Control A, copy, paste it. I can also use this settings key, and it will copy this. So if I want to copy it here, I can. All right, so if I just create a copy or duplicate that, I can then change this word to DI. Oops. Go to the front of this command and enter a DI to make it median, and I see that the median is going to be 69.4. Notice in this, it's an even number of problems, so it's just going to be the average of the two middle ones. Right? And then finally, the mode, there's only one that is repeated multiple times. So 84 would be your mode. Okay. All right, so that's mean, median, mode, the most like the common central tendency types of questions. Okay, there's also this idea of standard deviation that is tested on the SAT. Okay, and standard deviation is a measure of a spread. So that's this word right here. Okay, so a standard deviation is that, like on average, how far away are each individual point from the average point. So the lower your standard deviation, the more consistent all of your points are. They're really close, like each point is really close to the average. Okay, where if you have a large standard deviation, that means that there's like a big spread between them. Some are very extremely high above the average, some are extremely below the average. So if you take all of these distances here, so again, this line of 4.75 is your average. The standard deviation is, if you take all of these measures above and below, what's their total distance from that average? And that's going to give you what your standard deviation is. Okay, so some of the questions that they're going to ask you, and you're going to take the standard deviation of the sample versus the population. Normally, you're probably going to calculate the standard deviation of a sample. Okay? And because like the sample just means you're taking like a smaller portion of what everything is, and then you're kind of making approximations from that sampling. Okay? The population means that you've taken measures from every possible data set in that population. So like if you were estimating like the weight of like some endangered species, and you take a sample of 10 of them, you measure it, and then you come up with an equation or formula or relationship. Okay, then that's of the standard deviation of the sample is the distance each of the average difference from from that mean they each are. But if there's only 10 of those creatures in existence, that means you have the entire population of them. Then you take the standard deviation of the population. Okay? So most of the time, though, you'll probably take standard deviation of a sampling. Right, so some of the questions on the SAT that ask you about this are just asking about general tendencies. Okay? And so knowing what standard deviation is, or it's that average spread against what the average value is, okay, that's what a lot of them will ask you. So when you look at this data set right here, would you be able to tell which of these has the lowest standard deviation without having to go in and actually calculate it for each one? And when you look at these, you see huge spread here, right? Between 0 and 100, you know the average is going to be somewhere, like somewhere here, 200. Like it's going to be somewhere in the 2, 3, 4, 500 area. Okay, but so that's going to be a huge difference. This one's pretty close, right? This one's pretty close. This one's, again, a huge difference. So we can eliminate those two. So now let's just narrow it down to these. If you if you're looking at these or kind of paying attention to these, what you'll see is that the average of both of these is going to be 3. 3 is the mean. So when you kind of think about that, which of these is the average distance from each point from the mean going to be lower? The top one or the bottom one? This bottom one has 3 values that are exactly equal to the mean. They're a distance of 0, that they have a spread of 0 from the mean. Whereas both of these sets have the 0 and the 1 and the 6 and the 5. So basically what you're looking at is just those 3 inner terms, right? Which of these have a smaller deviation from the average? And it's this one right here. So that would be the smallest standard deviation. And without having to specifically calculate it, you can find that just by kind of understanding what you have. Okay. If you are trying to find it in the data set, okay, once again, Desmos has that for you inside this function. Notice you have 2 things. Standard deviation, that one is just the generic of a sample. And then when you see the P at the end, that's the standard deviation of the population. So we'll use standard deviation of the sample for that. And then if we take, I'll do this one here as an example. So if I take my list of data and I enter that, so there's my standard deviation 5.28. That means that on average, each of the individual points in that data set are approximately 5.28 units from what the average is. Well, if I want to know the average, I can duplicate it and change this word here in front to mean. So the average is 28.25. And so on average, each of those values in the set is approximately 5.28 away from the score of 28.25. If I want to find the median, again, I could just enter the letter D and I to get that at 29. I could have also just canceled from the outside in, since these are all. So here, the last, I have 2 in the middle, so I take the average of those, which is 29. And then finally, the mode is the number that repeats the most often. There's only one number that repeats there, and that's 34. So these would be my answers, both using the calculator and just using what I know about the statistics. All right, so see if you can answer this final question here, and then I'll open up your work and give you time to click on the keyboard button. It does have that. Scroll through statistics and choose one of them. And then you can type in your list of numbers. Again, I'm just going to work my way down each column. Oops. Okay, so there's my average, 47.36. The median, again, if I just go to the front of this and change the word, you can also access it from the functions. I get the median to be 49. My range, that's one thing that I didn't specifically mention, but the range is the difference between the lowest and the highest. So here, my lowest value is 1, my highest value is 90. And so if you just took 90 minus 1, that would be your range. And then finally, the standard deviation. Again, if you calculate this, I didn't recall the letters that were used. And so I can just go in here, like again, because I have this device, copy that whole set of data, paste it right in, and I get 28.88. to be my correct standard deviation.